Hey guys, this is a different format than you're used to, sorry about that, but this just came out of nowhere and I just have to really get into this thing. Before I go on, don't forget to smash that like button, smash that share button, and if you're new here, smash that subscribe button so you can watch more reviews like this one, and give a little tap to the gray bell icon for notifications on my latest uploads. Back to the review. If you don't know, the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences has released their 20-film long list of the films that are going to be competing for the Best Visual Effects Academy Award for next year's Oscars. Now, how does this system work, first of all? Well, first, the Academy selects 20 films that they feel like should compete for the visual effects nominations and ultimately the Oscar. Once they have the 20-film long list, they then narrow it down to 10 films in which studios of those 10 films will send the visual effects branch of the Academy screeners no longer than 10 minutes on how they did each visual effect. And so today, the Academy has released the 20 films that will compete for Best Visual Effects at next year's Oscars. First, I'm going to show you what that long list is. Then I'm going to show you what movies I think were left out and which movies I would bump out in favor of those omissions. Then I'm going to predict the 10-film shortlist, and after that, I'm going to be giving you the 10 movies I hope get into the 10-film shortlist, and ultimately, I will give you my 5-film hopes as to what I think should get nominated for Best Visual Effects. So let's get started. Here are the 20 films that are going to be competing in the visual effects race. Ant-Man and the Wasp, Aquaman, Avengers Infinity War, Black Panther, Bumblebee, Christopher Robin, Fantastic Beasts, The Crimes of Grindelwald, First Man, Incredibles 2, Isle of Dogs, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, Mary Poppins Returns, Mission Impossible Fallout, Mortal Engines, The Nutcracker and the Four Realms, Paddington 2, A Quiet Place, Ready Player One, Solo: A Star Wars Story, and Welcome to Marwen. Now there are two very important films on this list, that being Incredibles 2 and Isle of Dogs. These are animated movies competing for Best Visual Effects, and we've seen some animated movies in the long lists before. Only 2 animated films have ever been nominated for Best Visual Effects. The Nightmare Before Christmas, which lost to Jurassic Park, and Kubo and the Two Strings, which lost to The Jungle Book. Seeing Incredibles 2 and Isle of Dogs on there is pretty cool, although there were some pretty shocking omissions from this long list. Now personally, the 7 films I feel like were omitted from this list were Adrift, Annihilation, especially Annihilation. How the hell did that not make it in the 20-film list? But that's beside the point. And this might sound crazy, Maze Runner: The Death Cure. I feel like Maze Runner: The Death Cure, I didn't see the film, but I saw a lot of visual effects reels from this film. And in all honesty, I would have never guessed a lot of these were visual effects, but good God, it's amazing. I probably would have even nominated the film for Best Visual Effects, but I'm not that shocked over Maze Runner as much as I am with Annihilation, because Annihilation, even though the studio basically gave up on the film, which is kind of sad because I thought it was brilliant, Maze Runner was nowhere even near as well known as Annihilation, which even then wasn't that popular. Then another one I thought was shocking that was missing from the list was Pacific Rim Uprising. Another one was Peter Rabbit. Again, that sounds strange, but I mean, really, look, the rabbits look really good. Another one I'm shocked didn't even make it into the 20-film list was Rampage, the Dwayne Johnson video game movie. Holy shit, the visual effects in that were awesome! Especially the visual effects for George. And this makes it even more surprising because usually the big apes movies make it into the visual effects shortlists, and many times, like with Kong Skull Island last year, made it into the nominations. So seeing that Rampage didn't even get in there kind of shocked me, and I feel like should have been on there. And the last one that I'm also shocked didn't get in there was Disney's A Wrinkle in Time. Again, the movie wasn't good, I didn't like A Wrinkle in Time, but visually it was gorgeous. It had some beautiful special effects. So yeah, I feel like these 7 films were kind of snubbed for this list. I'm not saying I would give a nomination to all of them. I'm not even saying all of them would make it into the 10 film shortlist later on. But I feel like these should have been in the top 20. Now, if I'm gonna say what I feel like were omitted from the list, which movies would I have bumped out of the list in favor of these films? Well, I have come up with that. One of them, and it's for me the obvious one, Black Panther. I pretty much figured it was going to get into this list, and I'm going to get into its future in the visual effects race later on. But, I like Black Panther. I like it a lot. But for me anyways, the biggest issue I have with Black Panther were the effects. The effects were horrible. I mean, you got some okay shots, but then you got shots with really shitty CGI rhinos, and what should have been a really impactful climactic fight between Black Panther and Killmonger was just really bad effects. These are the kind of effects that would be really good in a video game. These are really fantastic video game effects. But if these are movie effects, then good God, this just doesn't work. Especially whenever the suits kind of reveal the actors and it doesn't even look like it's part of, them. It doesn't even look like the real stuff in CGI is connecting. It just looks really bad. And even though it is pretty impressive that Incredibles 2 and Isle of Dogs made it into the 20 film long list, I probably would bump them out too because... with Incredibles 2, it was amazing, and probably has some of the best visual effects in an animated film. But, for me, I don't know, I don't feel like it's enough. I feel like you have to do something really spectacular with visual effects if you're doing an animated film. Like with Kubo and the Two Strings, when you see how they did the red skeleton guy, or, the sea of eyes or something, or the action sequences, especially since it was stop motion, that's what made it pretty spectacular for me. And I would have nominated Kubo for Best Visual Effects. And even though Isle of Dogs was also stop motion, I'm not saying it's bad animation. No, it's not. But I don't know if it's enough for me to go, this should be in the 20 film discussion for the best visual effects of the year. I don't know if I'd quite give it that, because even then there's not really much being done that's really spectacular in terms of visual effects. Another one I'd probably bump out would be Mission Impossible Fallout, and here's why. I'm not saying Mission Impossible Fallout doesn't look good. It looks amazing. But sort of like Dunkirk, and I kind of learned this lesson when I reacted to the Oscar nominations earlier this year, and I kind of came to this realization. There's a big difference between practical effects and just fucking doing your stunts. With Mission Impossible Fallout, I can't say that I'd put it in the 20 film discussion of best visual effects because they were just doing all this shit. It's not really any kind of trickery. Tom Cruise is actually jumping out of a plane and skydiving. Tom Cruise is actually flying a helicopter. There's not really much of an effect going on there. It's just controlled chaos. So yeah, even though it is done practically, I can't say these are even practical effects because practical effects would mean that something is real, but it's trying to convince you that it's something else. Which clearly Mission Impossible isn't doing. It's clearly showing you what is happening is actually happening. So that's why I'd bump it out. The Nutcracker in the Four Realms, again, I'd probably bump that out for best visual effects. Because even though it looks gorgeous, and I think probably should get nominated for costume designing and production designing, I don't know if the visual effects are that good to be in the 20 film long list. Again, nowhere near as bad as Black Panther, and hell, I'm not even saying the visual effects in Nutcracker are bad. They're not. But I feel like they're not some of the best of the year, if you know what I mean. The sixth one I'd bump out in favor of my snubs would have been A Quiet Place. I don't know. I'm not really digging the effects here. They all look horrible, but at the same time, I don't know. I really feel like some of the films that were omitted had better effects than A Quiet Place, in my opinion. And the last one, and look, granted, I haven't seen the film, But from the trailers, and especially judging from the other movies that came out this year, I don't know if I'd put Welcome to Marwen in the long list either. Because I feel like, yeah, these are dolls, and granted I haven't seen the film, but I just, if the dolls are the reason why it's in the 20 film long list, I don't know if that's enough to beat out other films like Annihilation, Maze Runner, and Rampage, and all those other films I mentioned earlier. So yeah, these are the films that I feel like were snubbed for the 20 film long list, and in place of those, I would have taken out these films. Again, might be controversial, and I'm not even saying the effects in those movies are bad, all except for Black Panther. Just yuck. So, with Annihilation out, and Maze Runner: The Death Cure out, and Rampage out, and all those other films, what do I think are going to be the top 10 predictions, and what movies do I hope get into the top 10 once the shortlist is, cut down to 10? Well, here are the top 10 predictions. Yeah, even though I really don't think Black Panther belongs anywhere near these lists, I think it's going to advance to the top 10. Now, which movies do I hope get into the top 10? Yeah, for the most part, it is pretty similar. It's just, I just swapped a few of them out, and so, yeah. And finally, the top 5 films that I hope get nominated. I don't know if I can predict the top 5 because that seems a little bit too hard. It's harder for me to make a prediction if the top 10 films haven't come out yet, so it's a little bit harder for me. Now, if some of the other films I mentioned were actually in the top 20, I would have replaced Christopher Robin with Maze Runner, but since it's not, I'm saying Christopher Robin, I'm hoping gets nominated. And it's not out of the question that it could get a visual effects nomination, because Christopher Robin may not have really big visual effects like Jurassic World or Avengers Infinity War, but do not be shocked if Christopher Robin gets a nomination. It very well could. The visual effects in Christopher Robin I thought were amazing, and it's not because I really liked the film and it's one of my favorite movies of the year. That's not the reason. If the movie's quality in of itself was a factor, then Jurassic World wouldn't get a nomination in my opinion. But that's not what the category's called. It's not called Best Picture, it's called Best Visual Effects. And in terms of Best Visual Effects, I feel like Christopher Robin has a good chance of getting nominated this year at the Oscars. So don't be totally shocked if this movie, Christopher Robin, makes it into the top 10 for Best Visual Effects and ultimately maybe even gets a nomination. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the visual effects 20 film long list. Again, there were some stuff that I predicted would get on there, and there were some films that really should not have gotten on there. Black Panther. But whatever, I'm not going to complain too much about it because all film is subjective, even though I really think Black Panther's effects suck. Again, I like the movie, it's just really bad visual effects. So yeah, what do you think of the 20 film long list for the visual effects race for next year's Oscars? Who do you hope gets into the top 10, and who do you hope get nominated? Let me know in the comments below what you think. Thank you so much for watching. Give this video a like, share the videos when the channel circulated. Don't forget to support my Patreon on my Patreon page, or if you can't do that, then consider supporting me through my PayPal donation button in the description below. And if you want to see more, click this.